Hello, you absolute legends. Welcome back to the Shieldborn Ranch. Today, we're going to be sharpening chainsaws. So if your chainsaw is anything like mine, it no longer cuts like a hot knife through warm butter. And instead, it feels like you're using a butter knife to cut through frozen butter. Well, I guess we're going to sharpen them today. So when you go to sharpen your saws, you're going to want a few tools on hand. Probably want something known as a scrunch. One end's a screwdriver. One end is a wrench. This is for your spark plug. This is for your nuts on the side of your saw. So they would fit onto these right here. This piece is used to tighten your chain. When I go to sharpen, you need to have the right stuff. I like to use a marker. So this way I can mark the first tooth that I'm sharpening. So if you're anything like me, you probably don't know exactly how many teeth are on your blade. And then you'll want to get yourself a file guide so you can make sure to file at all the right angles. You can get a 25-degree angle, you can get a 30-degree angle, you can get a 35-degree angle. So depending as to what direction you're going, your 30-degree angles are split. 30's X over, 25's X over. Then you'll get different size round files. You need to make sure to use the right size round file to fit your teeth. This one's too big. As you can see, it comes up over the top of the tooth. Let's get a bit better of an angle there. Doesn't quite fit. However, when we switch to the right size file, you'll notice it sits in there nicely, right? The teeth's just at the top of it. The file just fits in beautifully. So you want to make sure you have the right size file for the size of the teeth on your chainsaw. You want to make sure to clip your file guide into your file so it helps you track the angle in which you're filing on. Well, let's get to filing, folks. I like to use a vise when filing my saw because it makes it a lot easier to keep it in place and hold it at a height that I can work on. So if you look, you can see that teeth is nice and shiny compared to this one back here, which is kind of dull and flat looking. Got that nice, shiny, sharp looking teeth. So as I roll around through the saw, eventually I'll get back to the point where I can see the teeth that I originally started with. There it is, because I marked it with black, so I know that's the first one I started with. That way as I work through and come back, when I see that one's my next tooth to file, I know I've filed every tooth. Now I know what you might be thinking, but you're skipping every other tooth. Well, it's because this tooth files on this angle, and that's hard to do from this side. So I turn the saw around so I can file the right way again. Now, you absolute legends, if you like the video, go ahead and like the video. And go ahead and drop a comment below. What kind of chainsaw do you have? Right now we're sharpening a Husqvarna 120. I call him the little boy because it's only a 14-inch blade. Just a small one. It hasn't got a whole lot of power, but it's enough power to take some limbs apart and break down smaller branches. But yes, with a 14-inch blade, I could bring down a 28-inch tree. You're wondering, how do you bring down a 28-inch tree with a 14-inch blade? Isn't that twice as wide as the length of your saw? Well, you're absolutely right. It is twice as wide as the length of my saw. But when you're bringing down a tree of that size, you cut through and you go through the first half, and then you come back to the other side and you cut through and you go through the second half. That gives you 28 inches of coverage. Or you can just use a 30-inch long bar and go through the whole tree in one go. It'll probably be a lot faster than trying to do it half and half. And it would certainly be a lot safer. But you gotta remember when you're falling trees, my friends, that they are very unpredictable. So you always gotta be on guard. Gotta be watching out for them because you never know what they're gonna do. Sometimes you're falling a tree and it goes exactly where you want it to. Sometimes you're falling a tree and it decides that it's going to fall right towards you. But important things to remember when falling trees is you never want to run from a falling tree. You always walk. So if you're walking, you're moving slow. You're near the base, so it has way less distance to fall before you're out of its falling path. If you're falling a tree and you run away, you could fall this way and you could be running that way. If you're falling a tree and you slowly walk and it starts falling this way, you can just start walking that way and you're clear of it. If you're running, you could just end up running further into its path. Then squish, no more you. That would kind of suck because you're unique and wonderful to this world. You're an absolute legend for tuning into the Matterhorn videos. Anyway, that's enough commentary. Let's just sharpen file. Go ahead and comment below if you'd rather talk through these or just shut up and file. What's your favorite style to watch? So as you can see, the 30-degree angle lines up with the blade. If it's further over, you're not at the right angle you want. If it's not, you're not at the right angle, right? Maybe you want a 35, so you line it up that way. Maybe you want a 25, so you line it up that way. I often do 30, so I go about there. It's kind of where muscle memory works too after a while. Oh, look at that. We're back to the original tooth. You can see the bit of black on top, the rest of them are kind of not. Well, that's side one done. On to side two. I'm going to have to adjust the camera. We'll be right back. I'm sure some of you are thinking, Matterhorn, didn't you pull the chain forward last time? This time you're pushing it back? Yes, absolutely right, I did. But the beauty of sharpening saws is, it doesn't matter if you're pulling the chain forward, whether you sharpen it, or pushing it backward. The only thing that really matters is that you get all your teeth sharp. Sometimes your teeth just wear out due to use. It's kind of like a kitchen knife. Use it for a while, you gotta eventually sharpen it. And it's just like a chainsaw. Just general wear and tear through the trees will wear them out eventually. Or if you like life here on the ranch and occasionally cut into your tree on the ground and hit a rock, well, you could have just sharpened your chain. You touch that rock, you'll be back into the shop sharpening it again. It'll be cutting like a butter knife through frozen butter. When just 10 seconds earlier, it was cutting like a butter knife through warm butter. Here's a perfect example of why you need to sharpen them. Look at that teeth. Thing's not exactly straight, is it? And we come back a tooth and you can see nice and straight, clean file. Looks good. This one looks wonky. You can see it doesn't quite line up with the edge of the file, eh folks? That's why we sharpen. Jeez, don't fall over on me here, silly camera. I think my production assistant tripod was drinking on the job. It's feeling a little tipsy. And there it is, we're back to the original. Now that we're done, you want to remember to always put on your brake. That will keep your chain from moving. As you can see, no movement. I want to check and see. That looks a little bit loose, eh? We need to tighten that chain up. Well, before we get to tightening, we should probably get to cleaning. I like to keep a safety case, keeps my chain protected from the environment. However, before we get around to putting the case onto her, we need to get around to taking her apart. That's where your scrunch comes in handy. So first you want to make sure you pop off your brake. If you don't do that, you'll have trouble getting the thing back together. Then on your little boys, like this guy, you find the screw on the front, that'll be your chain tensioner. You want to loosen that off a little bit after you loosen the bolts. Let's give it a couple of quick turns. Bring the chain in. You can see she's really loose now. But that's what you want because we're taking her right apart. So if you look inside, this is your brake, and this is what does the work of the brake. So that's pulled forward. This will be tight, hooked onto this part here, making it really difficult to move and get off and on. So we're going to have to take it and blow all this dirt and dust out of it. We're going to take and blow all the dirt and dust out of here. It's going to be a noisy job, so we'll get back to you once we've finished it. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and pop your blade off. And then after a while, it does wear out. It leaves some of the paint look on it. You probably want to remember which side you had up last time. So we're going to go ahead and relabel these. I'm going to label this B side. I'm going to put an arrow so we know B side was up. So now I know that I took it off. It was my B side and it was facing up. So every time you use it, you want to flip it over after it's been sharpened. You want to flip your saw blade so these channels here wear evenly, because your saw is coming along and ripping along the bottom. This is the side that will be doing the work when it's installed. Or if it's flipped over, this will be the side that's doing the work when it's installed. So if you label those and flip them over every sharpening, you'll have even wear on your blade. You'll get way more life out of it. This one we'll call A side. We'll put an arrow pointing up. So now you can see we got the A side pointing up, flip it over, B side pointing up. So you know which side should be up and which side should be down. As you can see, the B side here pointing down, the A side pointing up. And you flip it, B side pointing up, A side pointing down. So it always has the opposite sides going to the top for you. Anyway, my friends, I'll be right back once the saw has been blown out, and we'll save your ears. Now you're probably wondering, Matterhorn, how do you clean out your saw? Well, I use an air compressor. Nice and cleaned up. You can see everywhere. Let's try and get you some better lighting. See, it's all nice and cleaned up now. It doesn't look nearly as bad as it once did. Screw areas cleaned up. Nuts areas cleaned up. Maybe I should get a little bit cleaned up. When you're cleaning, you'll also want to make sure you run air through the channels in your saw. You have little guide teeth here on the end, which help the chain stay on going around the end. You want to make sure those are clean. You want to make sure your channels are clean. You want to make sure your oil inlets for the bar oil are and then you want to make sure that you get inside of this guy clean too. Look at that filthy mess in there. It's not too bad because I keep it cleaned regular. Here it is, you absolute legends. It's a cleaned up chainsaw. Now she looks almost brand new again. Beautiful, eh? See you back inside for the reassembly. Alright, you legends, we're back and we're ready to reassemble. So, if you remember last time, we had B side up. This time you want A side up, so you get wear and tear regular on there. Let me just adjust the height a little bit because we're going to be working up on the saw a bit higher. There you go, now you can see it a bit better. So at this point I usually lay the saw on its side. So now you know chainsaw teeth have a directional. If you put them on this way, you'll notice the back of the tooth Well, that ain't going to be cutting much. You need this curvy side to really get in there and cut. So you got to make sure you put your chain on the right way. Put it on backwards, you'll be like, but I just sharpened it. Why isn't it cutting? Well, that'll be because it's backwards. You flip it over and you'll notice that all of a sudden she cuts like a hot knife through warm butter again. When your chain's new, they won't fit on quite that easily. But when it's old and stretched out like mine is, well, they just fit over that like nothing. There's my production assistant again. I think it's a little bit drunk, wobbling all over the place like that on me. Lower you down a little bit so you can see what I'm doing here a little clearer. So now we have our chain reinstalled on the blade. It's time to put the rest of it together. I'm going to take and pop your blade cover on. Pop your nuts on a little bit. At this point I like to put it on kind of sideways. Let's raise you guys up again so you can see a bit of what I'm doing. I kind of just have to adjust the tensioner screw to fit it right. Trying to get everything to fit together nicely. There you go. Now we can tighten down those nuts a little more by hand. At this point you don't want to go too tight, because you still need to adjust your chain. So we lay it down so it'll adjust. Want it to sit in there beautifully. Sometimes you need to just sort of wiggle it a bit so it'll adjust where it needs to go. Now is when we take our tensioner screw. You can see the chain's getting a little bit tighter. It's not quite where she should be. Tighten these down a little bit more so she has a bit more firmness. You don't want to go super tight yet. You need your chain to still adjust. That's pretty close to what we're looking for. Maybe just a little bit more of a crank. So you don't want them to come out too far. You want about the bottom of the teeth to be about the top of your bar. If you have there, then you have just enough wiggle room to play around with it as you need to play around with it. So then what you want to do is pick up the weight, rest all the weight on the tip. The reason for doing that is because this side is the working end, so it's always going to be pushing up. So when you got all the weight resting on the tip, then you want to crank down your first nut. Get that one nice and tight, crank down your second nut. Get that one nice and tight. Verify that your chain's right where you want her. That's it. You've just sharpened and cleaned yourself a chainsaw. So then you want to throw your chain guard on there. That'll keep it protected from everything. That'll keep you protected from your chain, so you won't cut yourself up. Make sure to throw your lock back on, because good to be safe. And my friends, that is a nicely sharpened chainsaw, ready for service again. That was just one of two. Here we got the big boy. This one hit a few rocks, so she is razor dull. I know you're thinking in the comments, razor dull? Yes, it's so dull it wouldn't even compare to a razor. Anyway, we'll get on to sharpening and cleaning that, and we'll see you in the next one. This is the Matterhorn signing off. Thanks for tuning in, you absolute legends. We look forward to seeing you on the next one. Don't forget to hit the like button. Check and make sure you're subscribed, and sub if you're not. And we'll see you next time. Matterhorn signing off.